and thank you for staying with us on Channels Television. We do appreciate your feedback. Thank you once again. Before we get into today's conversation, we have this email from Paul Nyango about the review of the electricity tariff upwards. He says, their thoughts should be tailored towards productivity and improving the economy by channeling the power supply to those who need it the most, that's commerce, and not to the elite, that's Band A, that only consume for leisure and comfort. That shouldn't be, because business activities need to improve, which will lead to added value to the system. Thank you, Paul, for your feedback. Our conversation today is focused on the aviation sector. Air travel is regarded as one of the safest modes of transportation, thanks to the rigorous processes within the aviation sector that ensure the successful journeys from one location to another. Globally, air travel is incredibly busy, conveying millions and even billions of people to various destinations worldwide, showcasing the pivotal role in global connectivity and economic activity. While assessing Nigeria's aviation sector, opinions vary. While some criticize its current state, others see it as a sector with potential, albeit work in progress. Nigeria's aviation history is rich, having once been the aviation hub for Africa during the era of the Nigerian Airways. However, today's reality is different, with the national airline no longer operational and several other airlines ceasing operations between the 1980s and now. Despite the challenges faced by the operational airlines, they continue to strive forward. Recently, a local airline made significant progress on an international route, leading to disruptions in airfares for other carriers. Interesting times, you might say. Now, the Nigerian government has expressed its commitment to supporting the growth of the local airlines. Yes, indeed. Despite the challenges, the Nigerian aviation sector has notable achievements and positive trends. For instance, data from the Nigerian Civil Aviation Authority shows a steady increase in passenger traffic, reaching over 18 million passengers in 2021, and this growth indicates a rising demand for air travel within the country. Additionally, investments in airport infrastructure and technology have contributed to enhancing safety standards and overall travel experiences for passengers, positioning Nigeria's aviation sector for continued growth and success. Our guest today is Nigeria's Aviation Minister, Mr. Festus Keyamo, a senior advocate of Nigeria, turning an aviator. Mr. Festus Keyamo, senior advocate of Nigeria, welcome to Newsnight.
Thank you for inviting me.
You know, some will say it's amazing how a lawyer, the senior advocate, will be sitting in an aviation chair and piloting this nation to where we're going. How has it been like for you?
An exciting experience for me. Funny enough, I just had to give kudos to Mr. President, his vision, his dexterity. I don't know how he knew that about 90% of what we had to do in aviation has to do with law. Interpretation of BASAs, enforcement of agreements, and all of that. It's incredible.
So it's like he threw into your area.
It just threw me into a natural environment for me. It also requires a lot of diplomatic shuttles. And, you know, funny enough, you know, I am a fellow of international arbitration from the United Kingdom. And so I discovered that most of this work also has to do with interpretation of international agreements and all of that, you know. So I just found myself in a natural environment, and I'm loving it. And
how are you loving the fact that it's under your watch that Air Peace, the Nigerian brand, is now flying direct to the UK and has caused a ripple in the pricing of tickets?
Well, perhaps also that is also kudos to Mr. President, because, like I said, I just discovered that immediately I assumed office. It needed my natural skill as a lawyer, not just a lawyer, a member of the INABA, to interpret these BASAs, enforce them, put my feet on the ground for these things to happen for our local operators. Yes, it has drawn a lot of accolades, but now I can tell you that it is barely scratching the surface, really. And when we talk about all the issues we have to deal with in the aviation sector, we have quite a lot of it. This is just a low-hanging fruit that we decided to, pluck, as it is. But there are a lot of things that we need to address in the aviation sector, and I hope we have time today to look at these issues. But just to also say that the support for our local operators is one objective we identified very early. And funny enough, I have not seen any previous government highlight this issue, this objective, as much as this government is doing now, as in realizing very early that support for local operators and their survival is key also to revamping the economy, to also give customer satisfaction in terms of pricing. Because I asked myself, if 80% of those we preside over, 90% of those we preside over in the aviation industry are local operators, I am aviation minister. Who owns all the airplanes? Who are the people? They are private sector people that run. So if we don't pay attention to them, what am I presiding over as aviation minister? So you can see that the vision of this government, the go-ahead Mr. President gave me, is paying off at the end of the day now. They pay attention to our local operators. It's one of the marching orders Mr. President gave to me. Pay attention to our local operators, make sure their businesses survive, see how we can assist them with government policies and programs. And so when we came, we identified 5 priority areas in the aviation sector. The first one, of course, will be safety, because safety is number 1 in the aviation sector. So we said, look, listen, our first objective would be to ensure the compliance with safety rules and regulations by the agencies involved. Secondly, we talked about the improvement of infrastructure, because across the country, and that is one sore area we are going to address, but it's not a quick fix. It's not a low-hanging fruit, as it were, but we are going to address it. Is the improvement of our infrastructure, both the physical infrastructure you see every day that enhances customer experience in terms of the terminal buildings, the arrival halls, the departure halls, and all of those things in those halls that enhances customer experience. We are going to address all of that. So that is one key area in infrastructure we're going to address. But there are also other infrastructure that people do not see every day and that we think will also improve the aviation sector. One is also the MRO, the maintenance, repair, and overhaul facilities we want to attract to the country. And we have set that as one of our major priorities to ensure that we attract those MROs to the country. People are looking at, local airlines now crashing airfares and not putting pressure on the Naira. But the MRO is just going to be the final nail on the coffin. Because when we bring in the MROs, those maintenance, repair, and overhaul facilities, our planes, we don't have to go out again for C checks, for
and
B
that will
checks.
reduce cost of operations.
Cost of operations, and not only that, they don't have to source for foreign currency, foreign exchange again, to pay for their international obligations, because everything in the aviation industry now is dollar. Whether you want to change a boat, you want to do one check or the other, you have to source for foreign currency, and it's putting pressure on the Naira. But when we bring these facilities into Nigeria, that will serve the whole of West Africa and Central Africa and parts of North Africa, you will see that people, in fact, they will chase the Naira. Those in Africa, we have to look for the Naira to come and use these facilities, and you will see how much it will improve the Naira. Another part of infrastructure we are addressing are safety equipment that people do not also see every day. Those are behind the scene things. You just walk into the airport, you want to see good air conditioner, good toilets and all that. But there are critical safety equipment that ensure that when you are up there 40,000 feet above sea level, you are safe. You can go to sleep. For example, we want to improve all our instrument landing systems, the ILS systems. Those in the aviation sector, anything above 10 years, any equipment above 10 years should be due for upgrade, because there's so much dynamism in the aviation sector. So the ILS equipment in the 5 international airports and all the airports, we are also in the process of improving those instrument landing systems. Mr. President has put aviation as part of the Renew Hope, special funds, like the aviation is part of it. We're going to be looking at that, and I've also asked for special intervention. Mr. President is also on the verge of approving that too. That is one. We're also looking at those DMAs, the equipments that guide planes to land even in the most hazy conditions. So even when the pilot is blind, you can land a plane, you can guide the pilot to land a plane. Also, the Doppler VHS multi-dimensional directional system. So those ones are called DVOR. So those are the critical equipments we are looking at to improve and upgrade in order to ensure that even in terms of takeoff and landing in the most difficult conditions in Nigeria, like it happens in other parts of the world, we are going to get to that level. There are also two major projects we are looking at in terms of our total radar coverage of Nigeria. It's called the TRACON project. We are also at an advanced stage in the TRACON project also. And then of course the Safe Tour project too. We're looking at that. So those are the critical equipment behind the scene, critical upgrade for infrastructure behind the scene we're looking at to improve the sector. The third objective now is where, that is bearing fruit now that we set for ourselves, which is of course the support for local operators and to ensure their survival, to ensure their prosperity, and at the same time holding them to the best international standards. That is the third objective we set for ourselves. That is what is bearing fruit now, because we discovered, like I said, very early, that there's a high level of mortality rates in the aviation sector. In the last 40, 50 years, more than 100 airlines have gone down in Nigeria. And we ask ourselves, why are they going down? What is happening? With the attendant loss of jobs, once an airline goes down, so many people are back on the job market again. So we looked at that and we said, look, I'm going to come back to that later when we're talking about the airpiece thing. But I'm just listing the five objectives. Yeah. So we discovered that support for local operators is key also to improving the aviation industry. And of course, the fourth one is human capacity development. We thought that we need to train and retrain our personnel, the aviation personnel. There's something I discovered in the industry that I'm going to come very hard on recently, very soon I mean. I have intelligence report already about some people bypassing critical trainings when they ought to go for refresher training every, at regular intervals. Yes. And all of that. And some of them are skipping it. So I'm going to ensure that this thing does not happen because it will impact on the safety in the industry. And of course, the final one will be revenue generation. we are a revenue generating ministry with all the agencies almost revenue generating. So we also want to optimize that, ensure that we digitalize most of the processes of this human factor in collecting fees and all of that. So we want to optimize revenue for the federal government. So these are the 5 priority areas we looked at, and we think we are on course to realize these 5 priority areas.
You just hit the ground running, as you did when you assumed office, because you came into an office that had some reforms already put out, some like 4 pivotal areas which you've already looked at, airports, the national carrier, you suspended, air cargo terminals, that you say is part of the infrastructure building, creation of the maintenance repair, the MRO and all of that. So you added all of these things to your 5-point agenda. But let's go back again to that support for the local airlines and look at that matter of revenue generation. You do know that when you buy a local ticket, the cost of the ticket is infinitesimal compared to the total amount. And so when you look at the breakdown, different fees that are being paid for, how is that helping? Is that going to reduce in any way? Because that's part of what the airline owners, operators will tell you. We're not making any money. There's so much of taxation here.
Well, we met that on the ground, and I've ordered a review of those taxes now to ensure that Nigerians have succor at the end of the day. So some time ago, I called the NCA that are in charge of all of that, and I've told them to look at it again. There are some charges that are very important, no doubt about that. All over the world, you have charges built on tickets. You can avoid it. But there are some that we can avoid, I think we can avoid, in order to put too much pressure on Nigerians who are traveling, the traveling public. And so I've ordered the NCA, I've directed them to look at it all again and come up with recommendations as to which ones we can, we can either
Tweak
adjust
or
or tweak for the benefit of Nigerians out there who are, anxious to travel.
But in all of these things that you have put down, there is also the pressure of ensuring that the aviation industry is optimal. Because it's a global industry, even though it's local. We have the ICAO coming in to check what's happening here. How is that working out? You've come in, you've met the reforms on ground, you've taken some actions that many will say, okay, are in line with where we're going to. As you said, we are seeing the paying off right now. Airpeace is out there and making the nation proud. Is it that easy? Has it been that easy for you?
Well, like I said, there are very difficult issues. Issues that may take some time for us to get to where we want to get to. For example, the improvement of our infrastructure. That may take some time. So that is not a quick fix. But we can start somewhere. We can start somewhere. We have started already. We have identified the ones we want to attract people to come and cooperate with us to achieve. The ones we want to concession, we have identified them. We have a whole lot of items we have listed that may go out for concession very soon. And very soon you may also see advertisements from our ministry where we are going to call for public-private participation in the bidding process, or public participation in the bidding process for a final PPP arrangement. So we have identified those areas. This may not be the program to advertise all of them, but for now we are spoiled for choice. They're talking to us. Even the MRO I mentioned earlier, international investors are talking to us now. For now we are spoiled for choice because they just realize that Nigeria is a huge market, West Africa is a huge market, Central Africa is a huge market, and Nigeria as the biggest brother in these regions, they just realize that Nigeria is a place to come and establish this MRO so that it can attract customers from all over Africa. So the Arabs are talking to us, the Chinese are talking to us, the Americans are talking to us, the Europeans are talking to us. For now, I am spoiled for choice to see who do we give it to. So, and they're coming with their money. They're not saying they are coming for us to spend our money. They are coming with their money. Many of them are, coming with all kinds of very juicy packages for us to say, look, we can earn it, we can build it, we can operate it, and then we can share revenue with the federal government.
But
so we have attracted enough in that direction, and other facilities we're talking about. So for infrastructure, we are very clear as to where we're going. We're very clear as to what we want to do. In fact, it brings me to the thing I've been talking about from day one, which is also improving the entire aerotropolis, building a total aerotropolis. So it's not going to be that we want to improve infrastructure, we say come and rebuild the terminal building for us. Our ambition should not be that. There are European countries now that have 30 million people, 40 million people. Go and look at their infrastructure, their airports. A total ecosystem where you have 5-star hotels, you have conference centers, you have rail coming in, you have interlink between the same airport, you have interlink of rails between different wings of the airport and all of that for total transition of passengers to other parts of the world. We are 240 million people. Why can't we be ambitious? Who says we cannot be ambitious to beat all of that? So when we are going for infrastructural upgrade, for the building of aerotropolis, we should go for the best. We should aim for the best. We should look at the best design consultants in the world. We have the traffic, we have the economy, we have the people, we have the ambition.
Mr.
So we can do it. We can do it.
Yes. Said, this sounds very ambitious.
Yes.
Especially considering the fact that in our space, we're yes, you've talked about being spoiled for choice, but we also have competing issues. For instance, you're talking about an MRO. There are states who are also building MROs, like Akwa Ibom, for instance, is built. Is not yet operational. Won't that which the federal government is planning be like counter to that which they are already working on?
The more, the better. We are supporting the building of the MRO in Akwa Ibom, in Uyo. I went there, remember?
Yes, you did.
A fantastic facility that is there. I mean, Akwa Ibom has just shown the world that a subnational can do so much like the private sector. And they have, spent so much of their energy on this over the years. Akwa Ibom has been very lucky to have successive, insightful governors who are very focused. So Akwa Ibom has been very lucky. The present governor there is also continuing in that trajectory. And so I went there and I saw what they are doing there. I said, wow, They are even building a proper hub there for sub-regional, operation there. So it's beautiful. And like I said, the more the merrier. We're not going to depend on one facility. One facility cannot take all the airplanes in Africa, in West Africa, Central Africa, or part of North Africa. We cannot. We're aiming to have at least, one MRO at least in all our 5 major international airports. We can take 2 in some, but like I said, at least 1 in Enugu, 1 in Kaduna, in Kano, 1 in Abuja, 1 in Port Harcourt, 1 in Lagos. At least 1. We can have up to 2, 3, depending on the space that we get, the spaces that we get in all of these international airports. So we can then be spoiled for choice. Now, it is also one of the major reasons affecting the operations and the survival for local airlines, because each time they have to go out to look to fix their planes, to go for the normal routine checks like C checks or B checks and all of that, they spend so much. Some of them cannot even raise the forex, and so the airline dies off. So these are all the plans we have to ensure their survival. And guess what? The other plan is, of course, to ensure that they have access to the aircrafts that other nations, other airlines around the world, they also have too. And the only way for an airline to survive on a long term is not to survive on ACMIs. ACMIs are either the wet or the damp leases. It's to have access to dry leases. Dry leases are far cheaper. The terms are better. And almost all the airlines in the world, they survive on dry leases, right? We have said this over and over. So in the last few months, Nigerians have begun to understand the aviation sector because of all of this advocacy we have been doing. And so they understand that dry leases is when you get these planes on very good terms, and then you have to hire your own crew, your own pilots and captain and everybody local. Everything will be local. You don't have to import the crew.
Because you also have to take care of them.
You have to take care of them in foreign currency and all of that. So one other thing that is hampering that is the insurance policy. I've not talked about this. This is the first time I'm going to talk about it, but it's a major issue too that we are looking at. That the leasers around the world, they insist that you don't place the risk in the local market in Nigeria. They don't want the risk of the insurance to be placed in the local market. They insist that the risk should be placed in the international market. However, we have a problem in Nigeria where the National Insurance Commission, NICON, insists that all of this risk must go through our local insurance. Guess what? Our local insurers have done a lot in this country. I love local content. I support local content. However, the problem is that the risk in aviation is so big that most of this local insurance will have to go for reinsurance again for them to survive.
At extra cost.
At extra cost. They have to go for reinsurance in the international market once the risk is placed in the local market. And this is at extra cost to our local operators again. So and the local and the international operators, lessors and manufacturers are insisting that they will not bring aircrafts here if the risk is placed in the local market. They are saying, please place the risk in the international market before we can bring our local our aircrafts here. These are the twin issues, that of the insurance and that, of course, of the injunctions, the legal issues that they are talking about that I must help them to clear, which is the aviation working group. So these twin issues, I'm attacking them. So I want to start engaging the National Insurance Commission to say, look, can you make an exception only for dry leases? Other insurance within the sector can come into the local operators because I support local content. But on this issue, they are not going to bend. The international lessors are not going to bend. They want the risk to be placed in the international market, not in the local market. And we may not have the capacity to carry that risk in the local market. This is a key issue. We'll be engaging the NICON then over in the next few months to see, once we clear these two webs, these two issues, thorny issues, look, now you and your friends can start an airline company tomorrow.
You've talked about the two thorny issues that you have to deal with for the aviation, for the local market especially.
Yes.
But the BASA is another thing that's a problem that Nigeria has had to battle with over time. We have routes that we can't go. I mean, if you have to go, someone
because there are no airplanes.
If you have to go to the US, you have to first of all leave Lagos, for instance, go down to the south and then start going.
It's the most ridiculous even Brazil. It's Brazil here. Brazil is 6 hours across the Atlantic on the left. Brazil is 6-7 hours. Sao Paulo. To go to Sao Paulo now, you have to go to London first, or go to South Africa to connect, or go to Addis Ababa and connect, and then fly back and start flying again.
Fly back.
No, across Nigeria again. Start flying across Nigeria to go to Brazil again. Why? People have this issue is an issue we clearly identify that we can solve. Why? We have a BASA with Brazil. We cannot service the BASA because our local operators have no planes to service the route. How do we service the route? Give them access to planes. Make the environment conducive for them, for people to bring in their aircraft for them to lease. This is what they call the hire purchase. You know, hire purchase became popular in Nigeria in the 80s and 90s, where people take Okada for 80,000, 60,000 as the case may be, and they will pay monthly until you clear the entire purchase price with some interest on top of it. It's hire purchase. So let's just break it down for Nigeria. It's not some kind of juju hiding somewhere. No, it's not complex. It's take a plane on hire purchase, but they just want to make sure their planes are safe. So that you don't come here, you take their plane on hire purchase, they cannot come and take their planes out again. When they want to come to the country, customs will disturb them, judiciary will disturb them, aviation will disturb them, NCA will disturb them. They just said, look, clear all of this mess for us, so that when we come, you are not paying, like hire purchase happens in those days. You will see they will come one morning, they will just take your car or your Okada, say you have not paid for 2 months. Yeah. It's simple. That's what they are saying. In the past, some people went to take planes into Nigeria. They were excited to bring planes here. And when the planes came in, one particular airline, they just detained their planes here. They went to get caught injunction and detained their planes here. And the people started crying. They lost billions of dollars because their planes were detained here by court order and everybody was conspiring. How did we get here that we cannot engender confidence in international, investors? And I said, it's not going to happen under my watch. I told them. And that's one of the shuttle I went to in the shuttle diplomacy in France. I went to assure them. All the lessors in Europe, almost all of them gathered in Airbus to wait for me. And Airbus being one of the manufacturers who give these planes to them, they asked me, Mr. Keyamo, are you ready now? Is Nigeria ready for us now? Because they cannot ignore us, they also want to bring their planes here. And I assured them in Airbus. Did you see the letter Airbus wrote to me? When I left, the Airbus said, look, we have confidence in you now. We want to start working with you. Over the next few months, we're going to work together to clear all those knotty issues. They were excited about my visit.
Are the airlines that we have, the local operators, do they have the infrastructure, human capital inclusive, within themselves to handle these weight that this vision?
The pilots are there. We have enough trained pilots who are not employed.
Is it about pilots?
No, and we have crew. We have people.
What about mental aptitude?
You talked about it. You said human capacity. The human capacity is Nigeria. I mean, for you to ask this question here, you don't know what is happening in the aviation industry. The human capacity is in Nigeria in terms of to wholly run an airline, except from administration to flying to aeronautic services and all that. We have them, even the engineers. There's no employment for them. You see, the ripple effect this is going to cause is going to bring in terms of the focus we have to empower the local operators, like we did Airpeace. The focus it was good. The ripple effect. They are uncountable. They're not 2, 3, 4. And from employment to empowerment to opening up the spaces to ensure that there are no delays in flying time, to servicing our BASAs, everything, to crashing prices, to helping the Naira, everything. It's all centered around aviation.
I'm not arguing the capacity of the Nigerian people.
Yes.
I'm not arguing.
Yeah.
I'm talking about
everybody
the attitudinal framework. Is it there?
What do you mean about attitudinal framework now?
Customer service.
Service delivery. Listen.
I fly in Nigeria.
Listen. Those training and retraining will happen among those airlines because there will be competition. Don't forget, it's not the federal government that will train those people for those airlines.
But the federal government will ensure that
the standards are kept, because you see, what drives customer satisfaction now? Do you know what drives it? It's competition. It is. What brings about good prices is not monopoly. It's monopoly that will make one person to say, I beg, madam, if you don't want to buy, leave them. Because you know why? You don't have where else to go. So the customer will come back, tail in his legs, between his legs, to say, okay, how much? Or okay, let me just take it because there's nowhere else to go. But nobody will tell you that, guy, if you don't want to buy, leave them. Or if you don't want to fly, leave them. Nobody, when you know you have 15 other options. So it's not monopoly. And that was what our deal was trying to create before, which we've suspended based on, depending on when the president will give directives. The other deal we stopped was going to create a monopoly at the end of the day. A foreign country coming to dominate our airspace, dominate our airlines, dominate our total routes here. We're not going to allow that to happen. I hope you understand what I'm saying.
Yes, I do.
Another country, a competitor within Africa.
So far, the conversation has been really interesting. And I know we ended off on the human capital thing, which was one of the things you mentioned earlier about the training, how some people are avoiding certain trainings. Now, you've said, in your words, what aids service delivery is competition. Customer satisfaction is competition. But you also said that there are some people who are skipping trainings. The question then will be, how effective is the regulator to ensure that the people that need to go for the trainings, or the airline, the operators, send their staff to the trainings that they are supposed to have, and that those trainings are effective?
That's why you have a minister who supervises. A minister who supervises says, look, listen, do your job or get kicked out. That's why you have a minister who is on top of it. Because with apologies, the system is built in such a way as to be susceptible to gratification. I'm sorry to say, but these are things we cannot avoid on camera. And so you have people within the system, bad eggs, who just take gratification and endorse these people to continue, not knowing that you are putting the flying public in danger. You are putting the flying public. So
is it not knowing or not caring?
They're not caring. And I have my intelligence report on this. And I'm going to do something about it very soon. You are going to hear some kind of announcement I'll make in the next 1 or 2 weeks on this issue, including, for instance, allowing private aircrafts that are not licensed to fly commercial, these private jets, almost all of them are operating commercial, to the huge loss of revenue by federal government. Huge loss of revenue. Because the license to fly a private aircraft privately, and the one to fly it commercial is so much, the money you pay to the federal government is so much, because one is commercial. So people now come and take license from us to say, I have just bought a private jet. I want to be using it for my business or to fly my friends and my family. I will give them very low fee, pay this. The moment you give them, they are carrying passengers all over Nigeria, doing 6 or 8 flights a day. And nobody's checking them. Before I came, nobody. This is a notice to them on camera. It's a notice. I am coming for them. I am coming for them. Because the president has given us marching orders. We're not going to allow this to happen. First of all, in terms of the regulation, tracking them, making sure passengers are safe that you carry, regulating them and all that is low. Secondly, you are cheating the federal government. It's economic sabotage. It's economic sabotage. And I'm not going to allow that to happen. So people who are even my friends of Mr. President we are going to come hard on all of them. And perhaps ground all their planes, withdraw their licenses, come very hard on them. We're not going to allow that to happen. And I'm about to do something on that. And guess what? I'm tying it down to the issue of training and retraining, because it is in most of these private aircraft you now see those people who are not gone for their normal routine training. They are the ones flying them. And we have complicity within the system. People who are supposed to check them, who are supposed to carry out sting operations on them, they are actually, that's their pot of soup. It's their pot of soup. They just come and give them their monthly fee. So, say that they use this aircraft. And they say, no worry. They look the other way. I have intelligence on them now. So we are going to very, very soon, in a matter of days or weeks, come very hard on them on that issue, because we have to raise revenue for the federal government, 1, ensure that the laws are kept, 2, and safety of Nigerians, especially who are flying the private aircrafts. We have to ensure that these things are done according to law. And that is why I'm here as minister. So when you say there are leakages in the system, yes, they are. But I am put here as a supervisor to ensure that these things are not done.
Okay. Right now, as you said, I'm spoiled for choice where to ask you. But let's look at this matter. Sometime, I think it was it November or so, 2023, you made a call for the implementation of the Yamoussoukro decision. How is that coming on?
Well, it is Nigeria is taking a lead in that. The SATAM, which is the single, African air transport market. SATAM is designed, and that decision was taken in Yamoussoukro some years ago. That's why it's called the Yamoussoukro decision. is to ensure that Africa has an integrated air transport where we don't need too much licensing and cooperation to fly from one country in Africa to the other. Europe has achieved that. So there's a single air market in Europe. So you can see that there's connectivity from every European capital to virtually every other European capital. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yes.
There's direct connectivity. So from Germany, for example, you can fly to the other 40-something European countries. From London, you can fly to the other 40-something European countries. From France, you can fly to, so that's, and vice versa too. They can fly to these other capitals. That is not so in Africa as it is today. So sometimes if I want to go to Cameroon, which is just here, am I right? Cameroon, I will have to fly to Addis Ababa for 6 hours. Then connect again Cameroon again for another 6 hours. When I could have just hopped from Abuja to Yaoundé.
And you're there.
And on and in a matter of minutes. So so Africa has made it difficult for themselves to integrate their airspace, to ensure that there's seamless, flight from every single African capital to the other. And that's the SATAM we have been pushing for. Nigeria is at the forefront of that. Now, the AU is going to play a pivotal role in this, because this is not, the last time when I took over office, they were holding one conference on SATAM in Abuja, and of course I was the chief host, and I told all of them, I said, look, before I came here, you guys have been on this thing for years, calling aviation people together and aviation ministers all over Africa, because every time all the aviation ministers meet and talk about this, and they said, look, sorry, I am a major in international law. Allow me the modesty to say I have an A. I was one of the best graduates in international law. And I said, look, it's not going to happen if you call all of us together as aviation ministers all the time. This is more foreign policy than aviation. So you need to then include the foreign affairs ministers all over Africa. They have been doing SATAM for 15 years or so. No foreign affairs minister in SATAM. I said, no, it's not good. It's not good. So I've directed them correctly. I have guided them correctly now. Involve the foreign affairs ministers. Why? They are the ones who provide the agenda for the heads of state when they're going to AU. So SATAM can never be at the top of the agenda, because I will not be called. I will not be called to provide that agenda for AU. If we are going to AU, it's a foreign policy issue, not an aviation issue. It's not more of a foreign policy than aviation. They have to attack it from the level of foreign diplomatic relations and, in Africa. Once that, is done, then the aviation pool can come in. So we are just trying to tweak it a bit based on, my suggestion now to them in SATAM. And once that happens, once the heads of state take that lead, because it now means that all the various civil aviation authorities in Africa, we have to drop their positions a bit, drop their powers a bit. Is that all of them don't want to cede ground, because CA Africa, Nigeria is holding on to, you have to come to me for all the regulation. Cameroon, you have to come to me for all regulation before you can fly. That we have to drop and create one single civil aviation authority for Africa for that to happen. So that there will be one regulation for the whole of the African continent. I hope you get what I mean.
Yes.
That is only what SATAM can come to full fruition.
So how long would it take? You say Nigeria is at the forefront of that, but is there any traction as we speak?
Well, I am trying to give it traction as minister now, because we are like leaders in Africa in aviation too. And it's not in my hands alone when you talk about, foreign relations. You have to also involve other very, proud African nations to also buy into your suggestions.
Are you not concerned that if the SATAM kicks in, it might affect the local operators in Nigeria?
That is when they will make money. What are you saying, Nauta? That is when aviation will begin to bubble. Because you see them flying to all the routes in Africa every day. Every single day, Abuja will be full of flights. Do you know how many people wants to come to Abuja? Abuja is the capital of Africa. I hope you know that. Everybody wants to come to Abuja to do one thing or the other every day from the whole of Africa. At times, flights discourage them not to even come. And of course, with the problem of land transport these days, land transport and water transport, the only viable option really is air transport. Don't forget too that we also have the single trade, African trade agreement too. For that to also come to fruition, for you to have the single African trade, agreement to come to fruition, you also need a single African air. How do you want to promote single African trade all over Africa without an integrated air, service?
Space.
How? Businessmen cannot fly freely within Africa to promote African trade. There was a time Dangote said, that he had to get up to 15 visas or 10 visas at the same time to be flying to different parts of Africa. Visa restrictions all over Africa. We want to remove all those barriers. And I hope that other African nations can take a cue.
But is Nigeria open to that already? Has Nigeria begun that? I mean, in terms of giving visas to other Africans who are coming to the country?
That is going outside my portfolio a bit now.
But are you speaking,
That's going outside my portfolio a bit now.
With the Minister of Interior?
No, but we are all cooperating on that. And we have visa on arrival now in Nigeria. I don't know how far they have gone, how flexible the process is. But like I said, it's just slightly outside my portfolio. But I know we are doing a lot in that direction. The Vice President that is heading the Ease of Doing Business Council is driving that place so well. And all of us are part of that platform. And so we're having all of those conversations there. But I know some other African nations have gone way ahead too. Like I think Rwanda, I think Kenya, they say, look, once you're African, just fly into our capital and move in and come in. Like it happens in Europe. Europe has that now. They don't, once you fly into one country in Europe with your Schengen, you are not stamped into any other Schengen country.
You can just drive.
You just go around all of them. That's what we need in Africa. So we are talking of SATAM. Aviation has found its voice and its focus on SATAM. Now other sectors we need to key into SATAM. Visa section, trade. Visa, free movement. For us to be able to fly, we are just to provide the aircraft to fly. But the policy to make us fly easily will be other sectors to also key into the aviation sector. But Africa aviation industry, they have all agreed that we'll have to have a single African sky. That's called the SATAM.
I do know that in other climes you have regional airlines, you have local airlines, the ones that go from one state to other. You can only go from this state to this state or this state to that state. You can't go across like that. Is the aviation industry or ministry looking at how to designate or assign this route to the local airline so that if I know that going to your village or to your state we have on the average, you have like 200 people traveling there in a week. Why do I need a Boeing 737 to go on that route? Why do we have to have an airline that has only Boeing 37 going in that direction when we can have an airline that has the jet liners going in that direction? Or
the Embraers. Now it's like we say in Warri, you won't cause trouble. You cannot give some people lucrative routes and some non-lucrative routes because you must give equal opportunity to our local operators. It's not really capacity. Lagos, Abuja, the most lucrative. Abuja, Port Harcourt, Lagos, Port Harcourt, Abuja, Kano, Lagos, Kano, Yola. These are very lucrative routes. And so, Kaduna, as the case may be. You cannot then say, okay, some people, Enugu is also very lucrative too on the east and Owerri airports. And I think we need to do a lot in that aspect, especially Owerri and Owerri airport too. And we need to do a lot of infrastructure upgrade in Owerri airport in particular for the east. So I think that you must allow the local operators choose their routes. If the more the merrier. I won't sit down as aviation minister and begin to curtail routes, and it will look like favoritism to say no. Come and take this route. If you know you have the capacity to fly the route, and if you think that the route is too crowded, then you withdraw from that route and take some other routes. Yeah, but we want to create that competition. We don't want to now say we are assigning routes on a parochial basis.
What if you do that on the basis of capacity, as in capacity? There's a criteria.
No, you don't. Then you don't encourage them to grow. There are people. There are airlines that run with 2 aircrafts. Allow them. They can now decide. I will mention their names. There are some airlines in Nigeria. For years, they'll be running only that Lagos, Ilorin. Yeah. Lagos, Ilorin, Ibadan, Abuja. Yes. You know them. Yes. Those small aircrafts. For years now. You know that's it's their capacity, but it's not that they assign those routes to them. So you choose your capacity. Will you go and sell tickets when you have those 2 small Embraer aircrafts to be run, and you now say you want to take multiple routes? So choose your own. You can decide to be servicing your hometown. Some of those people are from those towns too. They say so they want to service and make sure that there are indigenes going back and forth home. They satisfy. They can do only 2 trips a day and park. There's some that do that. Just do 2 major trips a day. They park their small planes, service them. Oh yeah, then next time they enter the routes again. So it's up to them, but not the federal government will now begin to parochially assign routes to them. I don't think we should dwell on this.
Maybe I used the word assign wrongly.
Yes.
I'm talking about criteria for operating certain routes. Are there criteria like that? So that if my capacity is this and I'm operating this route, when I grow my capacity, I expand my route.
That is it's a business decision, not a federal government decision. It has to be your business decision.
Because, I brought this up here now because when we were talking about the African routes.
You just apply, but we cannot ban you to say don't go to this route.
When we're talking about the African route, you said when the Saturn kicks in, the local operators will have more routes. They can fly around Africa,
yes,
and all of that. The question of capacity again, I know when we started out this second half, we started with regulations. Who is monitoring? How effective is our monitoring? You talked about sanctions that are going to go out. But we're back again to that regulation. Now that we are yet, Saturn's not kicked in. Let's talk about what are the plans, timelines. Okay, look, we're working on this. This is a timeline you have to get this going. Otherwise, you're going to be knocked out. Are there timelines to some of these things that you're planning?
The only regulation we've done about starting an airline now is the 6 aircrafts. We say you must have 6 aircrafts. And that one kicks in, I think, end of this year. Yeah? 2024, I'll be very clear. I'm not, but sometime within this year or so, it kicks in. But the regulation was made just before I came to office. So, that's the only regulation we've made. But when it comes to the international operations, it's different from local operations.
No, I'm still talking local
international operations, you must assign the routes because of BASAs.
Okay.
Because of BASAs, you must assign because you negotiate those BASAs. So a country cannot be doing 7 slots into your country, and then your country people, your country's carriers are asking for 58 slots, and you give all of them. They won't allow you because they are only giving you 7 slots, and it has to be based on reciprocity. So that is different from local. There's no BASA within the local operations. It depends on your business model to say, look, once you buy an aircraft, you now apply to the minister to say, I want to be flying Lagos, Abuja, Port Harcourt, and all that. And hey, go ahead, it's your business model.
Thank you so much. Thank you for joining us on today's program. We value your opinions on the conversation. You can engage with us through our social media handles displayed on your screen. Additionally, you can listen to this and previous episodes of the program via our podcast on our website, channelstv.com/podcast, or go to youtube.com/channelsweb to see our playlist. We're all there, Newsnight on Channels TV. I'm Nel Taigbe saying bye-bye and thank you once again.